Since the horrible, brutal murder of MP Joe Cox, we have been hearing a lot about the politics of fear and hatred and division, which are all being aimed at us, all members of the apparent right wing, the fascists, the neo-Nazis, anybody that doesn't agree with official Labour Party policy, in other words. Now, before I start talking about this politics of fear and hatred and division, which I think comes absolutely from the left and not from the right, I would like to say something about poor Joe Cox, which is that first of all, I think she was a genuinely good woman, albeit misguided, but when the news first came out that she had been killed and the media immediately leapt on the right-wing element, I was very angry about this and made that public. And I would now like to say that now the evidence is there. It was a member of the far right or somebody with far right interests, and it was an act of terror. So I will put my hands up and say it was a right-wing act of terror. But you know, the amazing thing is that I'm amazed there are not more dead Labour MPs littered all around this country because of the hatred that they have brought about. You know, when I was young, I didn't really see any of this political hatred that exists at the moment, and as I say, I think it all comes from the left. But it simply didn't exist, because in those days you had issues of income and class and comprehensives versus grammar schools, and it wasn't a matter of life and death. It wasn't a matter of national identity or national survival. This has been brought into effect by the left. When Andrew Neither, for example, said that they were opening the doors to the third world in order to rub the noses of the right in diversity, what they were doing were waging war against their traditional bloc vote of native British, English, working class people. That's what they were doing. And this hatred that exists now, this hatred that the left has the sheer effrontery to talk about, this left that they have brought about. Now you imagine what real hatred is. You imagine what real hatred is, not some Brendan Cox imaginary hatred that he uses for political purposes against us, but real genuine hatred, such as your daughter or your niece had been sexually abused, raped, assaulted, drugged, burnt, covered in petrol, tortured by a Muslim gang. And then you imagine that the police did nothing about it. And then you imagine that a Labour MP, such as Dennis McShane, Rotherham MP, knew all about it, as he's admitted. And he has said, yeah, we knew about it, but we didn't want to rock the multicultural boat. So pieces of hateful people like Dennis McShane. Why is he not dead? If I was a father, if I was the brother, if I was an uncle of one of those girls, and he knew this was going on as a Labour politician, and he deliberately did nothing about it because he didn't want to rock the multicultural boat. What is this multicultural boat anyway? It's not being rude about Islam. It is putting Islam before the interests of the native people of this country. It shows what total and utter contempt the Labour Party has for the English working class, their very own people. The utter contempt. And I'm afraid to say this contempt was there with poor Joe Cox, who was very interested in Palestine, very interested in Syria, very interested in Israel, and the reason that she was is because she was dependent on getting the Muslim vote in her area. The Muslims in her area are not Palestinian, they're primarily Pakistani, but they have, as Islam does, a global outlook, a global ummah, a global caliphate. They do require us to submit before them on a global scale. And if you want to get their vote, you have to buy in to what this is what they want. You have to buy into their desire. You have to buy into the global Islam. Even though it is a matter of West Yorkshire politics, it isn't. It is now a matter of global Islamic politics. But you imagine, as I said, being the father or the brother of one of these poor girls. That is guaranteed to make you hate, It really is. And this idea that the people who've done this, the people that opened the doors, the people that allowed this to build, the people that covered it up, the people that are essentially waging war on their own people, are now saying that we are the ones engaged in the politics of hate, whilst they are the ones engaged in the politics of hope. Well, I don't buy that at all. I think that what you have done is inspired the hatred, you have inspired the division. Look at the division in this country now. How can you possibly say this is down to the right? How can you possibly try to propagandise this? We know that you can do it because you control the media. No, poor Jo Cox is dead. I hold no ill feeling towards her, but when I see the way she has been raised to this position of exalted sainthood, courtesy of the BBC, because one of their own has been killed. When Lee Rigby was killed, there was nothing like this. When these poor girls had these things done to them, it was covered up. So don't talk to me about the politics of hatred and division. Don't ever talk to me about it. You are the ones with the hatred, you are the ones with the division, and you are the ones who have, for some reason that only you must know about, are able to overlook these things and try for political reasons to turn this onto perfectly normal, decent, moral, ethical people who wish to preserve their country and their culture and their people as it always has been. The idea that we are now labelled hateful, far right. Do you know, in 1939 to 1945, people like us that tried to do their best to defend their country and their culture and their people were given medals. In today's Labour, left liberal establishment Britain, we are not given any medals. We are threatened with arrest if we talk about these things, or we are simply smeared. It is not good enough. You left liberal people need to know that it is your fault. You brought this situation about with your policies of mass immigration, multiculturalism, pandering to Islam, whilst offering nothing other than a total hatred and contempt of your own people. So let that be very clear. It is your fault, the left liberals' fault, entirely.